Hey everybody, and I'm so excited to wrap up my series of staples. This is my top 5 list for heavyweight games. These are strategy games that are heavier, and what I mean by that is it takes 2 or more hours to play. Now my medium weight strategy games were 1 to 2 hours, my light 45 to 60 minutes. Not only that, for length, the complexity goes up, and you're going to see that difficulty rating on BGG go from 3.4 to about 4.5. And so these are going to be those heavier games, again, that take a little bit more time, more complex, probably in a bigger box. And I cannot wait to start this. I mean, again, this is nice to wrap up kind of the trilogy of the light, medium, and then now heavy strategy games. But this is just so fun. I really have enjoyed making these lists, and it's been really challenging to narrow it down, but I think I've got a variety of games here in mechanics, gameplay, cooperative, competitive, thematic, you name it. So I am beginning with my very first. This is super exciting. This is a game that I think, along with all the other games, have a ton of replayability. That's what I think makes a game a staple, is a game that you return to, a game that you continue to play, and that you maybe even add expansions or modules to, add more complexity and strategy to the game that you already know. So the game that I'm talking about for my very first one is a cooperative game that takes things from a different perspective or a different angle. It is Spirit Island. This is my number 5. So what Spirit Island offers players is a cooperative settler destruction strategy game. I love this kind of come at it from the other point of view. What happens if this island that has these islanders named the Dahan, and these colonizers come? They come to the island, and they're going to be coming from the outside, like the seaside, the shore side, because you have an island map that you are dealing with in this game. And what if all the players at the table are these spirits, and these spirits who are protecting the island and protecting the Dahan? That's kind of like the germ, that's like the kernel of this idea. And so all the players are going to play a spirit that has a very interesting way of playing and has specific ways of triggering an element of some kind. So they're kind of elemental. And they are going to play on their turn together. All the players get to talk. It's very, very encouraged to communicate what the strategy is. Because if you're not communicating, those baddies are going to come on and really overwhelm the players. There are 3 ways to lose the game, and one is too much blight. This is what the invaders are essentially doing to the island. The other way is that if a spirit doesn't have any presence on the island, that's going to also end the game. So again, players have to really work together to make sure that they're supporting each other and attending to the blight. The last way is if time just runs out. You essentially try to grab one of those invader cards during their phase and there isn't one to do, and that's going to end the game. So players want to win together to eliminate all of that invader presence. The game grows with the players in the sense that early game is not like middle game, is not like late game. There's this growth, there's this understanding, there's this terror, and there's this kind of everything kind of just starts, it's like the small ball rolling, gathers more. And so things get really, really tough towards the end in a way that you're not necessarily as strong in the beginning. So you kind of work your way up to, essentially take care of the invaders and to use your powers in really, really clever ways. So the structure of a round is interesting because you get to do fast action cards, which has a particular symbol before the invaders have their action, but then there are slow action cards that you're essentially saying, I'm not going to act before they show up, but I'm going to respond to what they're going to do, because you can see what they're up to, what they're going to be doing, and really what's going on. There is this kind of telegraphing that players get knowledge of as they're planning their turn. And I think that's really, really clever. And the baddies are so bad. It's really, really hard. This is a challenging game, but it's also one that grows with players and offers more expansions. So it is a smart game. I think it's one of those juicy 2+ hour games, especially if you're playing with more at the table, like 3 or 4. but you can play with complexity that helps you. So if it's your first time, start with some low complexity characters, and then build into some of those spirits that are a little bit more complex and interesting and difficult to play, but also really value that strategy. This is a juicy one to sink your teeth into. I think Spirit Island is a great way to start my top 5 list of heavyweight strategy games. All right, I am ready to head to Kansas City for my next game. It's my number 4 pick and really gives players a nice chance to kind of pace themselves because you do not have to keep up with everybody in... Yeah, Great Western Trail. This game has players investing in cattle, which are going to be cards, driving up this route to get to Kansas City, avoiding obstacles, building buildings, and then hiring workers along the way. So when they get to the top of the map, because you start at the bottom, you are going to then sell your cattle. And that's a way for players to uncover bonuses and stronger core mechanics for themselves on their own personal player board. So when you do, you are going to sell, put that disc up there, and then you're going to start back over and you're going to draw your hand back up to your hand limit, which is something that players can modify or adjust during the game. It is just a delightful, super thematic, nice 2+ hour, for me at least. It takes me 2 hours or more to play this game, for players to just, again, jump into a juicy strategy game. So when you go, what you're doing is you're just going to move your figure as many spaces as you can. This is another one of those variable player powers. And so you're going to move your figure. If you cross a hazard that you have to pay from an opponent or to the board, you have to pay that cost. And then you activate the space which you land on. And you can go as fast or as slow as you want. Again, this is like you setting your own pace. And when you go to a location, again, you're just going to activate that. And then you're going to just wait turn order for it to come back around to you. Draw it back up to your hand limit, and then it's going to pass to the next player, and they're going to go again. So you just continually wait, and you see, oh, can I build my building here? Can I invest in an engineer here? Can I do this there? And you're gathering these cattle cards, and you're essentially creating a herd. And when you get to the top, your herd is the value of the number you're looking for, and you have to meet a particular threshold to place a disc down in Kansas City, and then further down the track along the top of the board. There's a lot that you're juggling in this, but it has just enough, again, that you want to play again and again and again. And, of course, as you know, probably, there are other Great Western Trail variants out there that have different maps and different components that use this core mechanic and this kind of core game and then give you a different feel and different vibe. So there is a way for you to kind of expand this and have maybe like 1 or 2 or 3 of these Great Western Trails so that you can have, some, varied experiences with this system. I think it's smart. I think it's clever. It's my number 4, Great Western Trail. Okay, folks, let's move on to my number 3. I am hoping that this box lid will actually fit into the frame with me in it. It is a massive box, and it is a really expansive game. So, here it is. This is my number 3. Eclipse. There we go. Second Dawn for the Galaxy. Essentially the second edition for Eclipse. I love a good 4X game in the sense that you've got just all this exploration and research and development that you're doing. There's nothing better than flipping over tiles and discovering where you are and how it's connected to you and how it's really going to help your engine. Because players are going to have these resources and these action discs they're going to allocate to certain locations, hopefully just growing and growing and growing in strength and power, which gives them the victory points. Now, whenever we play this game, I love to get out there. I love to explore. I love to just figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, I'm kind of building up a lot of my ships and my kind of combat ability. And then my husband Lewis is doing a little bit of exploration, a whole bunch of research, and I kind of just zoom in on him. And of course, we have some combat, and he gets sad because he doesn't fight me. But that's part of this game, is that you have spaceships, that you are kind of like trying to navigate through these connective tiles, trying to get to locations so that you can have presence. And presence is definitely one way for you to gain those victory points. So there's the explore, which is just discovering what's out there. There's research that you can do to build up and kind of like get the tech that you need for your particular faction. There is a way for everyone to play the same kind of human, the same starter person or character. But I think it's way more fun to play the different factions that give players an asymmetrical start, that have, different abilities, tech, research, etc. I really want to make sure that there's like something unique or interesting about what I'm doing compared to what you're doing. Conducting research is super important because that's how you get advancements. That's how you get opportunities to get things, like monoliths. You can only essentially grab or claim if you have that particular tech upgrade. And there are all these different technologies that you can make your advancements in or your upgrades in for research. To kind of soup out your ships, to like get them all really cool, you have to make sure that they have enough energy, that they have enough like phasers or defense or shields, and you get to kind of like craft and build your very own spaceships and what that particular ship type is going to look like. And those are upgrades, and I find that to be just a really fascinating feature. So I like kind of designing my ship capabilities. Very, very cool. After 8 rounds is up, you're going to just tally up all those victory points, and whoever has the most wins. This is a nice 2+ hour experience, again, for that kind of 4X feel. I think it's just a strong competitor. I also like that this second dawn has updated some things from the very first Eclipse. I think there's a whole bunch to like about Eclipse if you want that 2+ hour feel of really just exploring this kind of like this space exploration odyssey kind of feel to it. This really captures it. Yay, we're moving on to number 2. I'm super excited about this because it is animal themed, and I really, really like what this game offers. It has a lot of combinations of some of my favorite mechanics, and I think it is just that super replayable 2+ hour game. You might have guessed it by now. Here it is. Ark Nova. That's right, Ark Nova. Oh, did it top out? It might have actually reached the top of my screen. It's so tall, but this is it. Look at that cutie little elephant. So in Ark Nova, players are managing a zoo, and they are curating these special enclosures for these animals to thrive and to be super, super happy. And there is also conservation as part of this game, the idea or the concept. And I want to talk about those mechanics because that's really where the game is at. The first one is there's an action selection. All players have the same 5 actions available to them on their turn, which they take 1 of. And what they're going to do is they're going to look at the 5 cards, and they're in slots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And what that means is if your card is in the 5th slot, you are going to have 5 times the amount of action value towards that card, which is the highest it can go, which is the best it is. And then when you use it, you take it and then you slot it down in 1 and everything bumps up. You could pick 3 though, pull 3 out, bump 1 and 2 up, and then put it under 1. So your card will tell you what you get to do. The cards are animals, which let you play animal cards from your hand based on where your action card is. Cards, which takes you on break and also gets you cards from the deck. Association, you get to perform an association task with the value of the X. Build, which lets you build buildings inside of your zoo. Sponsors, which lets you play a sponsor card or take a break. So these are the cards that are going to tell you what you do on your turn and to what degree you're doing that action. I think that's so stinking clever. And it gives players just enough to think about so they're planning ahead while it's other players' turn. So when it comes back to you, you really know what you want to do. The other thing that I think is really cool is on your player board, you have all these tokens that you essentially want to remove and place out onto other spots in the board. And when you do those things, you're going to gain bonuses. And that kind of revealing is part of getting that bonus and picking what things you want to get bonuses for. Love it. The other thing that I think is really fascinating is that there is kind of like that reverse track that I talked about with Rajas of the Ganges that I think is really clever. There's one track that it's going one direction and the other is coming the other way. And when they cross, that's going to trigger the end of the game. And you essentially want those to be as far apart as possible after crossing through each other. And those two tracks are your appeal and your conservation. And so how well are you investing in conservation and how well are you attracting customers and people to your zoo? Now there's another track in the center that's reputation, and that's essentially based on your reputation as your zoo manager, which is going to allow you to get the cards in the middle that are face up. There's so much to like here, including the polyomino or the tile placement in your zoo, where you are placing down the different structures that are going to take the animals, because you have to be placing animals in places that you have planned for them. There's so much going on here, a ton of animal cards to go through. You will not see the animals again in one game. You'll have to go through several games before you start seeing, like not new animals, because there's so many in that deck. This is loads of fun, just a ton of theme. I think it's just delightful to play and so replayable. And the more you play it, the more you like it, the more strategy you see. I think it just grows on you. So I think this is a fantastic number 2 on my heavyweight strategy games list, Ark Nova. Okay, so let's talk just a little bit about some of my runners-up, those honorable mentions of the heavy, weight games that just miss my list but are still really, really quite good. I would recommend A Feast for Odin as just a standalone heavy game that you will really, really enjoy and again want to return to. I think there's this kind of like polyomino puzzling that is just super, super fun, and you'll find that to be just so compelling and you'll want to return to it. Nice theme, wonderful designer. Gloomhaven and Frosthaven are also on this list for, being heavy enough, and while each game takes about an hour to play, it gets more and more complex. It is that legacy style, so if you want to play for 100 hours, you can absolutely jump into Gloomhaven or Frosthaven with those unique characters that grow up and retire, but give you this nice card selection and just different ways of playing that kind of dungeon crawl game. I would recommend those. I think Scythe and even Twilight Imperium 4th edition would offer players just a really nice experience of, again, that 2+ hour game with the complexity that they're looking for. Which brings me to my number 1. This really just kept rising to the top. I kept thinking, there's no way this is my number 1, but I just kept thinking it was so compelling, and I just kept being drawn back into it and wanting to play it again and again and again. And I can't think of any better staple for a heavy gameplay than this. And I think it's the theme. I also think it's the cooperation. So without further ado, let me get to my number 1 pick. It is Frostpunk, the board game. Okay, so this, like I said, has everything in it for me. I love a good post-apocalyptic story of survival, and I think the cooperative nature of this absolutely just solidifies my love for the game, because you are working together and it is just dire situation, dire circumstances. The only goal you have in this game is to survive. And there are so many ways that you can lose and essentially die. And I think you are avoiding so much of the negative, and every gain you get feels so monumental. It feels so good. And what you do too is this game will grow as a story. You will have a different memory of every game you play, even if it's the same scenario and the same setup, which this game offers so many different scenarios and setups, which is one reason why I think, again, it's replayable, because what choices you make in the game will have repercussions. It will follow you. You will make a decision about a particular law, and then there will be some repercussions of that. Not just the instant choice that you make. There are things that will come back into the deck. There are cards that you put into your decks wherever it tells you to, and you'll come back across that thing. Oh, remember when we did this? Yeah, well, we thought it was really good then, but guess what? It came to bite us in the butt now. And so there are these moments that the story just really envelops you as a player. And like I said, your whole goal is to survive. So what you have is you have this generator in the middle of the table, in the middle of your board. And then there are these concentric rings that get colder and colder and colder and make it really hard to survive the further you get away from the generator. But what players are trying to do is you are trying to make laws and try to keep, law and order in a way that's still compassionate to the people, because your people are there to kind of help do whatever they can. And then sometimes you got a bunch of kids and kids can't really do anything, but you still got to make sure that they're like okay and that they don't like have to go shovel snow, and their poor little fingers get too cold. So you got to be really careful about allocating your people, because they might get sick, they might die, and then what you're losing is your workforce. So you want to make laws to make people happy. You got to shape your society, which again, every game is going to give you a chance to do that differently. Of course, I've already talked about this. Weigh your choices. I love the cooperative selection of choices in this game. Every round feels so big and it feels so full. And I love what you get to do in the game. And I love that there are all these different decks that create opportunities for the story to really unfold. You're going to find new technologies, which means you get to build new buildings, which means that you get to expand your little colony around this generator. And then the other thing you get to do, which is go outside and explore like the frostland around you. It's like you get to like escape this space and then go on these treks or these journeys or these expeditions to get resources and goods and all kinds of stuff to bring back to Frostpunk. It's great. It's so fun. It is just a real treat because it has a high loss ratio in my house, but it's fun. It's so fun, and I love that there's still some more for me to explore with all those different scenarios and with all the different setups. And so, just really, really delightful. And again, one of all the games, I've got all my heavyweight games out here. All these games had 30+ page rule books. Those are like the big ones. This is really what I'm talking about when I want a game that kind of requires I go through like 9 to 12 steps per round for us to like activate. So many phases. Every single round you're going to go through that. And then you're going to see, okay, did we survive? Yep, let's move on to the next round. Again, your goal is to survive and maybe meet other objectives for that particular scenario. Tons and tons of fun. I think this game is one of those games you could just play and play and play and play and have a fantastic time. Again, what a nice cooperative game. So this is going to wrap up my list for those heavyweight strategy games, but I want to know what you think. Put those comments in the comments below. Tell me what your, number one heavyweight strategy game is. Why? What appeals to you about that game? Boy, cannot wait to see those. And happy gaming. Have fun. Set aside half of a day to just tackle your favorite heavy strategy game. I'll be with you in spirit. All right, folks. I'll see you later. Bye.